So my subject today is about making an apology. This is something a lot of people find quite hard to do. And of course there are people who would say to you, never apologise. Certainly I think it's a good idea not to begin with an apology, especially if you're kind of a visiting speaker. But even if you're making a presentation to friends and colleagues, it's probably a good idea not to make that your opening gambit. But to never apologise as a general principle, I think might be a mistake. So let's think about this. When might you need to make an apology? I think there are a number of different circumstances. One might be if you have got something wrong and it's caused consequences for other people, so effectively somebody else has had to clear up a mess that you created. I think then it's appropriate to apologise. You may have done or said something with no malicious intent that upset somebody else in a way that you couldn't have predicted. I think it's also appropriate to apologise then. I guess there might be a situation where there was malicious intent. Maybe you set out to upset somebody else. Perhaps they'd already done something that upset you and you wanted to kind of feel that you'd got even. Maybe you've done that. So that, I think, there would also be a good case for apologising in the aftermath of that. So why do some people find it hard to apologise? I think some people don't like to admit that they have been in any way any less than absolutely perfect. And of course, to apologise is kind of to say that in some way you were wrong. So why would you not want to do that? Well, some people will say it makes me look like a bad person, it makes me feel bad, it underlines something, I'd much rather just forget about it and move on. The thing is, you might forget about it and move on, but the person who's been on the receiving end may find it harder to do that unless in some way you acknowledge that you have been the cause of something that was a problem for them. And I think it doesn't have to be a big deal. An apology doesn't have to take forever. To simply say to someone, I'm sorry, could be enough. Maybe you need to say, I'm sorry that what I did caused you a problem, so that they know exactly what it is that you're apologising for. But they don't really think it needs to be more than that. It doesn't have to be a big deal. I think once you've said that you are apologising, then the other person will find it easier to move on. And in the business world, there isn't really a great deal of this that happens because a lot of people are very, very concerned about always being right, about being seen to be successful, about not making mistakes, never getting anything wrong, being somebody that can be relied on. And so in many organisations, people are a little nervous about ever admitting that something they did wasn't perfect. But if you kind of zoom out from that and look at the big picture, if people are able to say, sorry, it was me, I got that wrong, and have their apology accepted, it does enable everybody to move on a lot more readily. So next time you get the idea that maybe somebody's blaming you for something, it isn't necessarily the case that you were entirely the only person who did anything that caused the problem. But if there's some element of it that can be tracked back to you, sometimes it makes life a lot simpler just to say, I'm sorry.